Hello and welcome to my Virginia garden. It is the end of June and the garden is starting to burst. And so let's go ahead and take a tour. And I try to do this once or twice a month during the growing season. For those of you who like garden tours, I'll show the good, the bad, and the ugly and what issues I'm having this year, as well as things that have been working out really well. We're definitely in the summer garden now. All the cool season crops are done pretty much, except for a couple of heads of cabbage here or there. If you're new to my channel, I am an organic, no-dig gardener located right in Central Virginia, now Zone 7B. And this particular garden behind me is my 5th year in this garden, which I really started developing from scratch and have been building over time. So I think let's first walk around the perimeter, what I call the outer gardens, and then we'll go inside the gates into the inner garden. My garden is oriented in a north to south direction. I'm standing at the northeastern corner of the garden, and you can see that outside I have arches on each corner and in the center, and then a mulched pathway with garden beds on the inside of the pathways. This year I also added some external pots just to kind of have an extra little barrier, and I put in there things that mainly I thought the deer and such would not eat. These are Mariglobe tomatoes, and here are, this is a Black Beauty eggplant. It's got its first fruit forming there. That started this week. And I can see that this particular eggplant is a Puntung Long, and I have my first fruit there as well as a lanternfly, which is one of the problems that I have been having this year. Lanternflies showed up here this year in a big way. I also have some peppers that are growing here, as well as some chili peppers. And on the inside, you can see watermelons growing. I have two kinds of watermelon plants that are large vining plants here. One is a crimson sweet. I think that's what I'm looking at. No, I think that's a crimson sweet here. And then the other one is called the yellow moonbeam. Oh, look, when you just come out, sometimes you see little things, and here are two little watermelons that are forming. Now these are big plants, so I'm actually not going to allow this plant to go through this fence unless I can figure out a way to support these forming watermelons. Here's another watermelon down here. So I have found that no-dig methods work great for growing watermelon in my garden because it just is such a rich growing medium. Now we're walking by what I call the central archway and looking into the garden here, and you'll see that I've got some butternut squash. This is my little enclosure where I have growing all kinds of different things. I've got some sugar baby watermelons and some sweet potatoes and some volunteer sunflowers that just are so happy to greet me. And growing up the inside of this trellis here are some Eden Gem melons, which are little personal melons, which I just love. So you can take a look at how this archway is coming along. That is a volunteer sunflower that planted itself, and it seemed so happy I left it. But this is Golden Flame honeysuckle, and that is now in its 2nd year, and it's a really beautiful honeysuckle. I think it forms such a nice edge. On the outer edge here, I have a melon patch. We have some cantaloupe growing here and some more crimson sweet watermelons. This year, I also added some sunflowers along the back, as well as I've stuck in a couple of extra tomato plants just because I had them. So I'm like, all right, we're not going to waste that fence there, that little trellis. Let's just do that. Going up the inside, I have created a new little mini bed right here with some sunflowers growing and some amaranth. And here is a pumpkin plant that will just vine out into this fruit area. This is a blackberry row, and there's lavender growing. I fill my garden with zinnias and flowers because I just love having flowers grow everywhere. As you can see, I've got the perimeter edges planted, as well as these external sides as well. Now this side, of course, gets a lot more deer pressure, and we have all sorts of critter pressure. In these pots, I had extra eggplants, so I planted them. And over here, I've got a artichoke flower about to go to flower. I have been harvesting artichokes. We've got some tarragon, and this will be this is mainly a flower and herb garden. Down here are where I had my root stout bed and the potatoes. I've had vole problems, and so I just uncovered this for right now. I'll be replanting some things in this particular bed, though. Here's some pumpkins growing here, Cinderella pumpkins. Over here you can see an example of the deer pressure, or something. Here is a Armenian cucumber, and you'll see that it's had a bunch of its leaves chewed right off and chomped off at the top. So I don't know what will happen here, if this thing will keep growing or what, but that is what you have when you don't have a fenced area. I have snake beans growing up the side, and a few tomato plants, some flowers. I had tried to get some dahlias growing in here, but they decided not to grow for me, and I'll just be putting some other things in here. Some gladiola coming up, and on the inside I have a sunken row of pepper plants. Over here, a variety of things are growing. Out here, I'm very pleased to announce that these are my apple trees that I put in, and this year these are Williams apples. I have 4 down there, and I have 3 up here. So that's the first fruit that this particular tree has borne, which this tree was put in 3 years ago. Now I'm on the southwestern edge of my garden, looking at the exterior and looking back towards the interior. And we will just come along here and see what is going in here. I need to get out and water that way for most of the day today and last night, and didn't get a chance to water, and it's been quite warm. Things are a little different here than maybe the last time you saw it. In the center here is what I call my sauce patch tomatoes, and you can see that they're plum tomatoes that are growing. These will probably come in late July. This is a tower of lima beans. This bed was replanted. It had my early English shelling peas in it, and now it's got a couple more eggplants in, and it's got some more beans that I planted, and I've been harvesting these, so you don't see any of the purple potted beans growing on here at the moment, but it's been a nice little steady supply of purple potted beans. Underneath this particular shade cloth were my brassicas. I also have some kale under there. I keep them under insect netting and shade cloth because of the heat and the insect pressure here. And on this side of the garden, I have a leaning tower of gladiola. I have some parsnips growing, and I have beans growing, and some gorgeous tomatoes that are coming along. These are little sweetie cherry tomatoes. Got some fruit set on it. And this one I think looks particularly lush. This is my Mountaineer's Pride tomatoes. Really, really good fruit set on this particular round. So it's going to keep going. All right, you can see the cucumbers down along this hedge here. And this gladiola patch is done, but I've got a few other things growing here, including another little cherry tomato in there. This is something I've not grown before, and it's growing vertically. I wasn't expecting it to grow vertically, but this is a lemon squash, and you can see that the first squash is starting to form here. It's kind of cool. It's a plant that likes to grow up. I don't have supports on it now, but I guess I'm going to need to come in and put something on there because it's getting to be pretty big. I didn't realize it was a vertical grower. Over here, oh my goodness. I think this beet is ready to pick. What do you say? I think I'll just pull that one and ferment it. That's a cylindra beet that has gotten out of control here. And we will go ahead and harvest it, and I will, let's see, I will ferment it. It's a monster beet. Hey, over here is the squash patch. This one got a little big. I'll go ahead and harvest what we've got while I'm here so I don't forget. And let it keep harvesting away. Squash grows so fast. Now this bigger one I think is about ready to go. So I'm going to actually come out and replace this plant and plant some more just in the back there, because that will be a second harvest. Let's spin around here. Over here is another bean patch. You can see the last of the peas. And in front of me, excuse my mess, I just harvested some potatoes out of there yesterday. Out of these pouches, I'll be replanting potatoes in here. And I can see that here I've got volunteer potatoes coming up alongside my leeks. So on this side, we've got a big tomato hedge, loads of basil. It's growing so much that I can barely get back there, but I will. A lot of basil. It's time to really trim this stuff back. And we have some eggplants that are growing under cover here. Oh, I don't know why this melon plant is wilting. It could be water, it could be something else. But I've got some melons growing up this trellis, and these are the starter of the Trumbosino squashes that will grow up this side. It's a really beautiful squash, and you can see this one's starting to reach out towards the trellis. My chamomile is just about done, and here's my first planting of the poinsettia cucumbers. This is where I've had a lot of problems with the lanternfly nymphs. And I can see these cucumbers are definitely getting away from me. If I don't come out every single day, I end up with monster cucumbers. Let's go ahead and pick that one. Turning around the corner, you can see a bed here. Now, I had planted lima beans, but you know what? They're just not coming up. So I'll either replant a set of lima beans in here or I'll do something else. And this is my sweet pepper row. Here's that watermelon that is coming to visit, and more basil along here. And let's walk through the giant. I got some potatoes out of here. Pot. This is the African blue spice basil, which is a beautiful plant. We keep propagating it every year. And a giant patch of lemon balm here. Oh, I think we have our first eggplant forming over here, maybe. On this one, maybe, or maybe it didn't get pollinated. We'll see. How am I going to get through here? My goodness. The jungle. These are ground cherries, and they are, the birds love them. I love them. Here's one forming, but it won't be ripe until it drops on the ground. Uh-oh, I see. Weeds. These actually self-plant because the birds get them. They go up and onto the trellis, and then they drop the seeds right down here, and they proliferate everywhere. And it's just, I like them, but the birds love them even more. Let's give this a hand up. I want this growing up, up, up the trellis, not down, down, down. A couple of issues that I had this year. Here's a borage plant that is thriving, and right across one that just collapsed. So I can't really figure out what the collapsing situation, why that happened. You can see it just kind of went whoop over, wilted and died. But this one is very healthy. This borage is one plant. Look at the size of this thing. It's huge. All right, so let's go up the other side. You can see that these beans had some bean beetle damage on them. I have been picking the larvae off. I have not treated them. These are going to be coming out pretty soon. Been harvesting. These are dragon tongue beans. Let's see if I have any growing on here. Yeah, here they are. They're kind of stripy. I picked a whole bunch of these the other day. Oh, I just saw this is the bean larva. Nasty business that it is. Pick it, squish it. I got to come back down here and, oh yeah, I got to get in here and deal with this. That's tonight's job after I shoot this video. Oh, look, this tomato is starting to rat up in here. Ripen. Here is another cucumber tower. I had peas growing up here, and I've got Chinese long beans growing up here. This is a Suyu long cucumber. Let's go ahead, and it grows lovely on a trellis, but it is time to pick it. And here's another one. They're big. See how they grow? They are delicious cucumbers. Here's the jungle and the crazy part. Okay, this is a row of tomatoes on the exterior, and this thing is a mystery. I thought it was a pumpkin, but it turns out, I believe, it's little gourds. And I guess it just self-planted And I'm letting it go, although I'm kind of trimming its ability to spread too far in here and letting it go outside instead. But a lot of tomatoes set in here, and a lot of different varieties, mainly ones I have not grown before. Kellogg breakfast and green zebras and all kinds of lovely, lovely things. DeBruzes. Now I planted this bean patch a couple of weeks ago, and you can see the contenders grew, a few of the Maxibels, but nothing else. So I'm going to come back in and fill this in with more contender beans because they seem to be the most consistent. And I happen to have a bunch. And of course, I left these cucumbers up overnight. These are picklers. They're supposed to be small. Sometimes I do stupid things. All right, here's a bag of potatoes that I planted in mid-June, and it is doing great. And I'm, hoping that I get another batch of potatoes in August or so. I got to come in and mulch that full up to about right here. I promised I'd show you the problems, and the problems are few but annoying, mainly having to do with creatures. I have some things that are just not thriving, like this particular tomato doesn't seem to be thriving here. This one just kind of, I don't know what's going on with it. It just sort of went bleh. But this one is doing fine. I put this up to kind of keep ahead of a munching problem on some of these plants. These are mallows that are just French mallows that are beautiful. And the big problem out here, I've got a critter. I actually saw a groundhog attempting to climb, and I think he actually did climb up here, nibbled off, or either a deer nibbled off all of these sunflower leaves, tried to climb, broke this, and so this sunflower probably is going to not make it. The other issue is on my line of my rose alley, I have had some deer nibblage. You can see how they came in here, nibbled off this part of this plant. So all in all, it's been a pretty successful. Well, that's the late June garden tour. Come back in a couple of weeks and I'll show you how the jungle really starts to explode. I've showed you the good, the bad, and the ugly, the critters that we're dealing with, lanternflies, horrible, horrible things, and more deer and groundhogs and such than I normally typically get. However, things are really going along. We've been harvesting tons and tons out of this garden. So if you enjoy gardening and you love to cook what you grow, this might be a channel for you. So I invite you to join me by subscribing, and do consider sharing this with another person you might know who loves to garden and cook as well. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope your garden's growing well. Take care. Bye. I forgot to show you these hops. My husband is a brewer, and I started growing some hops for him. Unfortunately, the lanternflies like those too.